Hi everybody! Oh, that is loud. I didn't need to yell that, sorry. I forgot I had a mic on. My name's Ellie, I'm the Conservation Officer for the BDS. And I'm just going to do a brief talk about the dragonflies of Andalucía. You might be wondering why I've chosen Andalucía in particular, but it was because I had the privilege this year of attending the European Congress of Ornithology. You might be able to spot me lurking in the back, which was followed by a field trip. And this year the Congress was based in Andalucía, in the beautiful city of Seville, which you can see on the map. I didn't realise this, but Spain is considered by many to be the most biodiversity-rich country in Europe. And Andalucía has incredibly interesting wildlife, as well as great tapas and flamenco dancing. And this is partly to do with the geography. Being based at the bottom of the Iberian Peninsula, it's quite isolated from the rest of Europe, which leads to high levels of endemism. I can never say that word. But it's also the closest point for Europe to Africa, with the Strait of Gibraltar only being about 14 to 15 kilometres wide. And this is an important dispersal corridor for a variety of birds. All birders know that Gibraltar is one of the best places to go and see bird migrations. But it's also important for the flying beasties as well. Ta-da! Just a bit about the topography, and this is important because the topography of Andalucía interacts with the weather to create different climatic zones and creates a diverse variety of environments within quite a small area. So as you can see to the west and central area, that's predominantly lowland below 500 metres. Whereas you have quite a large mountainous area to the east. Andalucía has a Mediterranean climate, so hot, dry summers, as I discovered, and warm, wet winters. July is the hottest month with an average temperature of 28 degrees, and January is the coldest with an average temperature of 11 degrees. Andalucía contains some of the wettest and driest places in Spain. It receives most of its precipitation from the Atlantic, and as the wet air moves east across the country, it drops all that rainfall, and by the time it's past that mountainous area and got to the eastern coast, it's predominantly lost all its moisture. And that means that the very east is the driest area with low rainfall. And this is just a map of some of the broad climatic zones within Andalucía. So you'll see in the up in the mountains, it's also a lot colder with higher levels of rainfall. And along the coast, it's a lot milder during the winter periods. And these are the main rivers of Andalucía, with the I apologise to anybody who speaks Spanish. I'm going to absolutely butcher these names. The Colver is the largest river in Andalucía. But from an ecological standpoint, the two of the tributaries of the Guadiaro are the most interesting, and those are the Rio Janal and Has Garganta. So as you can see, the kind of lowland area where the Colver runs through is predominantly surrounded by agricultural lands, and over time this has led to the degradation of the river with high levels of pollution, whereas where the Janal and Has Garganta run, that area is predominantly surrounded by forest and scrubland. So that's where we were based. We're based in a mountain town called Benaraba, and that whole area is surrounded by national parks, including the Parque Nacional Sierra de las Nieves, which is famous for its botanical biodiversity, and endemic plant life. But the area itself hosts a wealth of wildlife, including Iberian wolves, Bonelli's eagle, a vast diversity of insects. This is a nose grasshopper, which I particularly liked. And lots of reptiles and amphibians, including these little Moorish geckos, which hang out around the streetlights at night time. But as I mentioned, the Congress was based out of Seville, and at lunchtime we had the chance to go for a wander and do a bit of exploring. And we were based close to the Plaza de España, which has the big artificial moat. And here we found quite a few orange ring drop wings. I took none of these photos. I had to nick them off other people on the tour, so I can't take credit for them. And there was a couple of males basking just around the edge of the moat. And males easily recognizable by the bright red body, head, eyes, and legs. Red wing veins and bright orange patches, which cover about a third of the wings. And this is a species that you can find in kind of man-made wetland habitats like this moat. And this is species was actually originated in Africa and spread north and colonized Andalucía in around 2007. And as you can see, it's continued to spread north since then, most likely as a result of our warming climate. And as you can imagine, we got quite a few odd looks, big group of people just taking pictures of the floor while everybody else was taking selfies. But personally, I thought Trithonus kirby was just as beautiful as the architecture. Another man-made site that we visited was Laguna Puerta de las Pilas, based near the city of Algeciras, which was actually an old sandstone quarry, which got transformed into a lagoon for wildlife. It's about 33 meters deep. And it's got these kind of steep, scrubby banks, and hanging out around the edge of the water, and just around where people are standing around this kind of section with kind of the lush emergent vegetation, there was a male long skimmer which was basking on the rocks. The males are incredibly aggressive and territorial and will try and chase off any other dragonflies that come near them. It's the largest skimmer in Europe, well, the longest anyway, and kind of fits its name. It's got a really thin, long abdomen. Males are dark blue with black coloration on the abdomen and beautiful blue-grey eyes. And this is another species that has spread up from North Africa and arrived in Andalusia in, I think, in the late 60s. And it's associated with standing water with lush emerging vegetation. And again, this is probably a result of climate change, but it's also thought that it's also benefiting from the creation of reservoirs like the one that we visited. Oh, and here's the current distribution, and these are all based off data on iNaturalist. Moving on to more natural habitats, we visited a small rivulet of the Rio Turon, which, as you can see, is just a very small, shallow stream. And here we found a couple of West Mediterranean endemic species, including the yellow-veined skimmer. There's a few males perched on sticks above the water. As you can see, it's bulkier than the long skimmer. Fits its name again. It's got yellow costa, node, and radius veins, yellow wing spots, and the males are completely covered in this beautiful powder blue coloration. Blue, and it has blue-grey eyes again. And this species is associated with slow-flowing streams and rivulets. Oh, and here's its current. It has a very small distribution, as you can see. It's a West Mediterranean endemic. And another one was the Mediterranean bluet, another endangered species, another one was the Mediterranean bluet, another endangered species, which can be identified by the pear-shaped eye spots. It has almost triangular-shaped wing spots, and the males have a very kind of thick wine glass-shaped marking on segment 2, similar to the variable damselfly. And this species is similarly associated with slow-flowing rivers with abundant aquatic vegetation, which it uses for ovipositing. And this species is also classified as endangered, and this is because both species associated with similar habitat, and a lot of their surviving sites are located in agricultural land, like the site that we were at. As you can see, it's surrounded by olive groves. In fact, our visit was cut short when 50 goats turned up. So some of the main threats to this species is intensification of agriculture, so increased water abstraction, higher levels of pollution entering the streams, and also climate change, so increased frequency and prolonged droughts, which threaten the streams with desiccation. We visited a slightly larger river called the Rio Guelda Horse, which was a kind of a meandering section, so it had fast and slowing sections. We were visiting this not very attractive dry riverbank, and we went here specifically to see the faded pincer tail. The species is quite difficult to spot, because as you can see, it's really well camouflaged. It likes to perch low to the ground. We sort of managed to find a couple of males. They've got this beautiful kind of hues of kind of orange and brown, orange wing spots, and the male has a clubbed end to its abdomen. And the species is associated with flowing waterways with gravelly or sandy riverbeds. And the species is only classified as near threatened, but it's thought to actually be far more higher risk of extinction. But because there's been a lot of effort to record this species over the past few years, that kind of skewed the results as more sites have been found. But this species is thought to be at risk, particularly in Spain, of extinction within the next 10 years. And this is associated to climate change again, desiccating its waterways, but also reduced water quality as a result of urban and agricultural pollution. As you can see, it's got quite a limited distribution. It's a Mediterranean endemic. One of my favourite sites we visited, the Rio Guadiaro. We visited a weir on the river, which was surrounded by trees. Above the weir was still slow-flowing water, and below there were some kind of areas of rapids and little waterfalls kind of coming off over the weir. And over the rapid, we found a couple of male ring cascaders, which hold territory by kind of floating above those rapids. Males and females are quite similar in appearance. They're predominantly dark in coloration with yellow spots down the sides of the abdomen. And this species is associated with fast-flowing waters, rivers and waterfalls. It's widespread in Africa, but is limited to kind of southern Spain, Sicily, and South Portugal in Europe. Above the waterfall, I went to have a nap just in the shade, but I managed to spot a pronged clubtail male just hanging out in the vegetation. The species is associated with slow-flowing water with kind of organic debris and silt sediment on the bed, and that's why that species was hanging out above the weir where the water was being slowed. Males and females have these bright blue eyes. They're really stunning, and males have a clubbed end to the abdomen and these two prongs, hence the name, and a little prosecco shaped marking on I think that's segment 9. And this species and the ring cascader, as we saw, are on the red list. And this is again due to climate change and intensification of land use around its breeding sites, leading to reduction in water quality as a result of pollution from urban and agricultural land use. And this is in an endemic to Western Europe. And lastly, my final site we went to was on the last day was the Rio Janal, which I mentioned earlier on. And just above the river, they every summer they excavate the riverbed to create pools for swimming. So here we go. We'll see if this works. Oh no, that's not working. No, QuickTime not available. Okay, I just have to take my word for it. But so yeah, you've got these deep pools, little waterfalls. So you have species like ring cascader again, and then kind of shallow areas of river. And we were told that we would be able to walk the entire length of the river, and it would just be kind of paddling height. This was a lie. There was a video of me getting very wet. But it was worth it. There was stunning species there, including the Colver demoiselle, which is a lot of people's favourites. So this species is similar to our demoiselles. It's associated with streams and rivers, flowing water, but it is often found in areas of a shaded river, unlike other demoiselle species. Males are come in a variety of colours, dark metallic browns, reds, purples. The wings are almost entirely black, and as the name suggests, it has quite a sore-looking bottom, with a little pink undercolouring on the last two segments. And females are similar in appearance to our demoiselle species, metallic green-brown, but it's got dark tips to the wings and very obvious white wing spots. Oh. There we go. And the species is quite widespread and in Europe and stable in distribution, which helps, which is nice. And just a final honourable mention to the newest species in Spain, which was only discovered in 2020 and was only discovered in Andalucía last year. This species is associated with small seepages and streams with a high water quality and with a sandy and gravelly bottom. I'm not going to go into the identification and how you tell it apart from the other pincer tails, but this is the paper if you want to have a look after this talk. As I said, associated with small rivulets and has a very limited known distribution at the moment, but because it is quite similar in appearance to the other pincer tails, it could be more widespread. And we went to look at it at this little roadside ditch, which was full of litter. But I mean, there was a couple there. We managed to see it. Yeah, if you're around in Andalucía, make sure to check any ditches that you walk past. You might find a rare dragonfly. So in summary, Andalucía has a high diversity of species, 62 altogether. The reason behind this is its geographical location, being isolated from the rest of Europe, leading to high levels of endemism. You know what I mean. It's also Mediterranean climate and the abundance of diverse and abundant wetlands. Main threats to species are similar to in the UK and the rest of Europe: pollution, over-abstraction, intensification of land use, and climate change. And this is particularly threatening species associated with shallow or temporary wetlands, as these are at greater risk of desiccation. And if you want to learn more or fancy a visit to Andalucía yourself to see the dragonflies, I'd recommend checking out G3 Guides. Florent was our main tour guide for the trip, along with the El Bosque Animado Education Association. which also set up and runs the network of observers of dragonflies in Andalucía. And they have this, I think it's called the Genal Station, which we were based out of near Banaraba. And this is available to international amateur and professional odontologists and ecologists who wish to go and study the biodiversity of the Genal Valley. And lastly, next Congress is going to be held in 2026 in Poland. So if you fancy coming along, I would recommend signing up to the newsletter of the Dragonfly of Conservation Europe newsletter. So you can sign up to that by just sending an email off to that email address at the top. And that's it. Thank you for listening. I'll hand over to Jen.